Okay, it's 5:05, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us this evening and showing an interest in this call for artists. Um, so these are the things we're going to go over today at a really high level because a lot of this stuff is laid out in pretty good detail in the RFQ. But we're going to go over Elevate the East, the initiative, project partners, and steering committee members. We'll walk through some of the details of the RFQ, and then we'll leave it open for some Q&A. Um, so first, just a little bit about Elevate the East. So it was a community visioning process commissioned by Council President Blank Griffin and Burton Bell Carr. It was a year-long planning process that included a lot of different public events, online surveys, youth workshops, experiential walks where they walked every block in the neighborhood and asked residents questions like, what kind of art would make you feel inspired? What kind of art would make you feel valued? And out of that, several priorities kind of emerged when it came to public art and planning and projects. And, probably over the course of the last 5 years, you've seen a lot of the projects that have come out of this work. Some of the themes, and these are laid out in the RFQ that were elevated, pun intended, is to elevate the view. This area has some of the highest elevations in Cleveland, engage residents, include local artists, to uplift and embrace African American identity and heritage. They wanted to feel valued and inspired, hence why they were constantly asked about that. They wanted elements that would make them feel less stress. They wanted safer streets. They wanted multi-sensory experiences. So, particularly in the case of this sculpture and other work, making sure that there were more than just 2D experiences and other ways for folks to engage with things, especially if they had accessibility issues. And then they wanted public art that embraced their unique local character. So we figure that through the community engagement process and through working with residents and the steering committee, we can work together with the selected artists to figure out the public art themes rather that are most important for this project. Every project obviously cannot achieve all of these things, or maybe it can. Um, so our primary project partners are Land Studio is managing the call for artists. I am myself and Nancy are the principal project managers on this project. CMHA is the host for the artwork. It will be on their campus and they'll maintain it after we're finished. And Burton Bell Carr has been providing community engagement support. Um, we have 6 residents on the steering committee, as well as representatives from 6 organizations. The community builders, the city of Cleveland, and city architecture are involved in addition to the project partners, and they have connected us with residents, overseeing community engagement as it pertains to the new Woodhill buildings, provide resident support and such. And city architecture was the lead and principal designer on these Woodhill homes. So a little bit about the RFQ. So we're seeking an artist or artist team for the design of the sculptural element. We'll talk a little bit more about that, about the team aspect of it later, but want to emphasize here that we want to make room for folks who have maybe only done 2D work to possibly team up with somebody and propose an artist team and work and move over to the 3D. But ultimately, looking for a passionate, qualified artist or artist team to design a community-inspired artwork to work with us and residents and the community to create something that is interesting and beautiful, but also showcases, character, representation, and the values and themes that Woodhill residents hold near and dear to themselves. So a little bit about the site. So it is on the corner of Well, it is bounded by Woodland Avenue to the south, Woodhill Road to the west, Mount Carmel Road to the north, and East 110th Street to the east. And I'll show you an aerial view in just a second. Um, on Woodhill Road is where we did the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority mural just 2 years ago. And I know a couple people on this call were involved with that. It's really great to see you all again. So it's a really good opportunity to like put another piece of artwork kind of near one that is, related to the same initiative and kind of keep building this campus of artworks around the neighborhood. Um, this is a HUD funded neighborhood initiative, so that is how we got the funding, if anyone is interested in that. Here's an aerial view of the site, and we're looking at it potentially going. Um, so these roads have been redrawn, but this area is still about the same size, and we're looking at various green spaces and entryway points off of Woodhill in the center here, where they've rebuilt some streets. There are green spaces and pavilions in the center here that we're looking at and trying to decide where would be the most impactful place to put the sculpture. So the project budget, the overall budget is 160,000. We've broken it into two phases, a phase one contract of 10,000 and a phase two contract of 150,000. We've done that because we don't know what kind of artist or artist team is going to apply. And we wanted to split the contracts up so that in phase two, we could kind of figure out if there's an artist fabricator who ends up getting selected, then obviously we can negotiate different fees. But we want to make sure that if it is a 2D artist, that we leave enough money for engineering, fabrication, and installation, and any additional design work that will help get that 2D artist into the 3D. If we need, additional renderings or conceptual drawings, if they need assistance with that, we want to make sure that there's room in the budget to help them do that. We also have a small budget for community engagement, supplies, and travel. It's around $3,000, and that would be to support just art making, um, community listening towards or whatever the artist and us as a steering committee kind of come up with as appropriate community engagement opportunities during the course of this process. Um, just a note, you can see the note there, but just that artist fee shall not exceed 20% of the overall project budget. But again, that we can negotiate that based off of ultimately the artist and artist team that are selected. That would obviously go up if the artist was also fabricating, for example, or had additional capacity to do some of these other things. So special considerations. So just like one of the public art themes that emerged from the planning process, we really want to give special consideration to artists who live, work, or have connections in the Buckeye Shaker, Larchmont, Woodland Hills, and Mount Pleasant neighborhoods. Previous public art experience is required, but I will say that caveat is kind of expansive. If you've done any art experienced by the public in any way, I think, you are obviously qualified and able to apply. And I would say even if you don't, still apply. And then lastly, community engagement is a critical piece of this project. And we say in the submission requirements that in your one-page letter of interest, you should, emphasize or speak to how you might engage with the community. It might be good to even propose an idea or two that you have. The submission deadline is Monday, August 17th by 4 p.m., no exceptions. And we, for the most part, try to keep the barrier of entry really low. And the call is open to all artists of any medium and teams of artists 18 years or older. A little bit about the selection process, just that we will select the artist and then that we will be expecting them to work with the Morris Black Public Art Steering Committee to plan 3 community engagements. So I don't think that any of us is expecting 3 brand new events. I think there's an opportunity there to plug into existing community engagement opportunities and, get some conceptual boards out there or do some community art making or do some community listening. So I don't think they have to be three brand new community engagement events, but we do want to have at least three opportunities to engage with the public past engaging with the Public Art Steering Committee. Following those community engagement events, and we'll look at the timeline in just a second, the selected artists or artist team will present their designs for one round of revisions. So we're hoping for three kind of entirely different sketch level concepts. We would give you some feedback because maybe there's like one and two are rising to the top, and there's some combination of one and two in the end, or maybe just three, but leave some room for feedback, and then they'll present the final design to us. Um, Following the final design concept, we'll go into the next phase of contracting, which I discussed. We'll kind of figure out like what exactly is necessary to bring this concept to life. So if you don't already have an idea of like what kind of fabricator you want to work with, and we need to do like a matchmaking effort, we'll kind of figure out together, how much it might cost to fabricate, engineer, install, and figure out what the contracting looks like based off of getting quotes and such, and the artist's comfortability. Um, so submission requirements, a one-page letter of interest. I would say, and I'm glad that you folks are on. If you are someone who has never done a sculptural project or anything like that, and your letter of interest needs to be a little bit longer to speak to at least how you've thought about your 2D artwork translating into a 3D piece, please take the space to do that. I would also say that, yeah, like if you need more room to explain things that you don't feel like either your portfolio and image sheet don't really show, I would say take the space to do that. And then a link to an online portfolio or an image sheet with no more than 20 images of previous or relevant work. So if you are an artist team, that's still 20. So, choose, if it's two of you, obviously choose your 10 best works, or if it's four of you, so on and so forth. And then, you can contact me if you have any questions, and I'm happy to help with anything by way of like accessibility or technical issues if you have any problems with your submission. Um, so this is where you would submit. We're hosting the Call for Artists on Land Studio's website. When you go to the website, there will be a bar that comes up right at the top that will take you to it. But you can also find the call linked under a section called Artists Plus, and Call for Artists and Opportunities is where it will be. So a little bit about the deadline. So the call will be open for 4 weeks. So you all still have plenty of time. It's due on the 17th. And then the selected artist or artist team will be notified on the 28th. We're expecting to do those three community engagement events through the fall. Give the artist or artist team December for like a conceptual design phase, maybe 6 to 8 weeks, and meet before January is over to unveil the first three, give feedback, and then turn around a final design in February. We're expecting fabrication and installation to run through March and September, so that we can be on track with the construction schedule as the site is still being built, and maybe tie into the construction schedule in a kind of, like efficient, if there are like ways that we can get the project done more efficiently, or we can ask the construction site to consider this thing or that thing so that we can install things without a hassle. It would be best to get in while they're still in their construction cycle as well. And then finally, a little bit about the community engagement process. So this was just a bit to tell you what we're doing on our end, to make sure that we're adhering to the same sort of expectations that we're expecting the artist or artist team to follow. We formed an advisory committee, and all of the residents were formerly lived in the Morris Black Homes estates, formerly known as estates. We have been actively participating in community events and will continue to. So keeping our ears to the street about ways that the selected artists could fall into existing community engagement processes or processes, or where they might benefit from conversations around the public art piece that will go in Morris Black. Dissemination of information. Forgive me. It's been a long day. We'll be proactive about sharing information and literature related to the Elevate the East initiative. So we'll make sure, obviously, to help the artists get information out about their community engagement process, just to inform folks and community partners and stakeholders about what's going on and just keep everyone in the loop. And finally, and most importantly, just the inclusion of ideas. So just finding ways to take input from residents, community members, and organizational partners, and incorporate it into the development phase, and just make sure that the final artwork, whatever it is reflective of, the voices and experiences of the Wood Hill community. I think that is what is most important. So I tried to think of things that you all might ask and tried to address them through the course of this time here. But again, even if you've never done sculpture before, please still apply. We still, especially if you're from this neighborhood, feel passionately about this project. If you've ever lived in the Morris Black Estates before, if someone you know have, and please still apply. I think the biggest thing is we want to see that you've at least thought about how you might take 2D into the 3D. It might be worth it to like even have some preliminary conversations with a fabricator just to see how that process might go, and explain that you've done that, do some due diligence on your end. However, if you were selected and you don't, like, Land Studio obviously would also help do some matchmaking and things like that. What you would need to have absolutely have done before, though, is manage a budget and these sorts of things, which is why we're saying that public art experience is necessary, because there's still going to have to be some work on your end to get it into the 3D. Um, Dylan, I appreciate your questions around whether or not you can submit conceptual drawings that were never built. You absolutely can. We're happy to receive renderings or sketches of just ideas, like 3D ideas that you've thought about but have not had the opportunity to bring to life. Please include those in addition to existing work. The fee is split into two phases, again, just to give room for kind of negotiating and figuring out exactly what the remainder of the project budget should look like based off of that selected artist or artist team. And then finally, what are our expectations for community engagement? Again, we are definitely expecting, to some extent, some fresh and intentional and creative brainstorming around how we might incorporate community voice or reach residents about this project and get their input on we'd like it to be. But we are also making room for, working with Neighbor Up at a Neighbor Up night, or working with a local community organization who's already doing a back to school party or a block party, and figuring out how we might plug into existing community events as well. So, but to some degree, some level of that thinking should come through in your one-page letter of interest, or some original inclination or idea.
Lauren, can
Um,
I jump in real quick?
sure.
A frequently asked question could potentially be, um, you know, am I required to obtain insurance and workers' compensation? So from the design side of things, that won't be necessary. But once you go into fabrication and installation, um, you will be required to obtain certificates of insurance, naming Land Studio and also CMHA as additional insureds, as well as more than likely, and we need to get this confirmed from CMHA, but I'm pretty sure they are going to require that you also obtain workers' compensation. And that also is if you are working with a team and there are multiple team members in your group, each and every one of you will also need to have and are required to have certificates of insurance as well as workers' compensation, especially if you're doing the installation. So I just wanted everyone to understand that.
Thanks, Nancy. I think that's important to know on the onset. So now I want to make some room for Q&A. If there's anything I haven't answered at this juncture, you can drop it in the chat and we'll answer as many as we can during this time. Um, oh, or you could raise your hand and say
Okay, all right.
it.
Mac,
Go ahead, Mac.
you have to unmute.
Um,
Hey there,
hmm.
sorry, I just wanted to point out that chat was disabled.
Oh, okay.
Um, but I also had a question. I was curious if any aspect of this has to go through the Public Art Commission as well, or if this is just CMHA as our primary, like, final approval review panel for implementation.
So if public art committee, you mean like our city's like public art review process, it absolutely does. Anything seen from the public right of way has to go through it. So thank you. I think that's important to note and keep in mind. And that is why we have a representative from the city of Cleveland on the steering committee so that we could kind of try to get ahead of any sort of concerns, safety wise or design wise that the city might have or things that we need to consider before going through that review process.
Alexander?
Yeah, it might be jumping ahead a little bit here, but just questions. It might be more design focused, but scale is any limitations or expectations on scale of the work?
No, I don't think that's getting too far ahead. I think that the reason why we provided the overall project budget is so that you could have a good sense of scale. Um, and that right now, the only design considerations and scaling that we want the artist to consider is based off of that project budget. I think if
Yep.
for some reason the scale of whatever it is, let's say the only thing I could think of is if it was too big for whatever the space we were designing for, um, then I think we would try to work through like scaling it down and making two of them or something of this effect. I think we just have to problem solve. But we definitely wanted folks to dream bigger than smaller.
Great. It's good to
And
hear. Thank
and
you.
CMHA, Alexander, CMHA will also probably chime in once we get into that design component, they'll also probably have a say in that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. The next one is Deborah. Unmute.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my question actually was partially answered just now because I had the question of if there was a possibility of doing multiple related placements or installations. So in other words, two or three, actually I was thinking more like three or four related, but in different spots. So that would be a possibility.
Yes, I think that would be possible.
Okay, and then I have one more other quick question, and that's just regarding the our letter of interest. Is
Hmm.
there an opportunity to attach video to that, or would we just link that, or should we just include that with? It probably would just be easier to send you to a page that includes any video or things like that, correct?
I think that would be easiest.
Okay, yeah,
If you're not able to do so via the link, which I don't think that video is an accepted format for
right.
submission. So
Okay,
I think the best thing to do would be to include a link.
onto a site. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Aaron.
Chairman, stay over here,
Oh,
please.
I think I lost.
Okay, hello.
There you go. Okay.
So my questions, I just had two quick ones. One question was like, our artist team, like applications viewed differently than individual applicants? And then the second question is like, are there like any like site durability, safety, maintenance, like accessibility restraints that like we should understand right now at this point?
Not at this point, but I would say that, generally speaking, I'm sorry, I'm going to answer the second question first. Generally speaking, you want to be considerate of like basic ADA requirements. So I think that like, providing like a wheelchair accessible walk up path to your sculpture, like these sorts of things, like where we'll be looking for whatever the sculpture is to include that. But I wouldn't say like on the outset that you necessarily have to be thinking about, unless this is a part of your design, say like Braille, unless that was a part of your design. I think to the first question, I don't think that artists and artist teams are viewed differently. However, one question that an artist team is going to need to be able to answer is like if they're not submitting work that they've worked on before, they'll need to speak to how they'll work on this new work that they have no precedent for. Um, like obviously, you know, we need to know that to evaluate whether or not it's the ideal artist team without having seen it before.
All right, Dylan.
Oh,
There you
hi,
go.
two questions. You talked about the timeline for construction and city architect is the project architect, right?
Mhm.
What phase are they at with the design right now? And uh, if and when could we maybe see the site plan for where the sculpture might go? Or I don't know if that
Yeah,
exists.
absolutely. So the selected artist would absolutely be able to look at the site plan.
Okay,
We like as soon as they are selected.
gotcha. Okay,
Um,
awesome.
so like the steering committee, is like touring the site right now and kind of trying to get a better sense of, without it being built yet, exactly what might be most impactful or what the options are. City architecture, I don't know which the exact which phase they are now, but they are anticipating being in phase 4 of construction by the late summer, fall of next year. So, and they are wherever they are now, like I just don't know if it's phase 1, 2, 3, or 4, but wherever they are now, they are on track to do that, if that's
Wonderful.
helpful.
And then one other quick question. Is the steering committee the same as the selection committee?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
All right, Bob.
Okay, two questions real quick. One, if the selected artist wanted to use any lighting elements, permanent lighting elements, would there be access to tap into electricity? And then question two is the artist responsible for carrying any long-term insurance towards the sculpture? So if somebody climbs on it, hurts themselves, et cetera, that would be a thing?
So the second one, no. There's no long-term insurance requirements. And once the project is built, the responsibilities, maintenance and responsibilities and aftercare CMHA would assume
Mhm.
that. And then the first question about lighting, um, I think that if you made lighting a part of your design, first off, I think it would be welcomed. We just have to budget for it and figure out exactly how to do it. I don't know at this juncture if there is lighting on the site. But there's access to lighting all across the campus. And so I think we could figure out if it wasn't all of the places where that have the potential for public art have access to lighting at this juncture. So I think we just have to figure out how to make it happen, but
And
that
I
we can.
also think, Bob, I think this is also, Alon kind of touched on this earlier, that, we can talk with the contractors, depending on where they are in the stage of their installation and construction components, depending on where this artwork ends up being, that they may be able to trench that line and run the conduit and get you possibly, and again, this is just possibility, like run the wires for you, for that connection. But then the end product would be the responsibility of the artist or artist team, as long as they're able to do that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I think. Anybody else? I'm looking across here. I think, Bob, because the way that it did it is as you raised your hand, that it put you in that order.
And it's okay if something comes up, following this information session and you want to just email me. First letter, last name, atlantis-studio.org. Always happy to answer any emails or any additional questions that you have. And if there's nothing more, then I am really looking forward to all of you all's submissions. I think this is going to be a really special project, and I'm really grateful that you all have taken an interest in it.
Yes. Thank you for taking the time to hop on and gather more information.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.